But it's also led me to reflect on how do I deal with this? How do I look at this? A verse that has meant a lot to me, that's encouraged me, is Isaiah 50:12. Who among you fears the Lord and obeys the word of his servant? So the context there is that you are obedient to God and God-fearing and doing what he said that you should do. So you're fearing God and obedient. So who among you fears the Lord and obeys the word of his servant? Let him who walks in the dark, who has no light, trust in the name of the Lord. This is interesting because the context of that is saying that because you are, even though you are obedient and fearing God, you can still end up in the dark. And this is emphasized even more. He says, "As let him who walks in the dark, who has no light," in other words, this is really dark, "trust in the name of the Lord." I was reflecting on that, the name of the Lord, and went to Exodus 34:6 and 7. And there, Moses says, God, show me your glory. And God says, I'll show you my goodness, which sounds like he's equating his glory is his goodness, and I'll proclaim my name. And he comes down and stands beside Moses, and as his glory passes by, God says to Moses, I am the Lord, the gracious and compassionate God, slow to anger, full of loving kindness, who shows his love to 1,000 generations, and is quick to forgive wickedness, rebellion, and sin. God says all of those things are his name. And the first thing he says is that I am gracious and compassionate. It's compassionate and gracious. The first thing is that God says about himself, I am compassionate. In other words, I care. It really matters. And I am gracious. And I'm slow to anger. He has a long fuse. I can't tell you the number of people who, when something's happened to them, says, why is God angry with me? God may not be angry with the person. That's not coming from God. But God is compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, full of loving kindness. Just think of that. He's full of loving kindness. He wants to show his love to us, give us good things. He is quick to forgive wickedness, rebellion, and sin. All you have to do is admit, yep, I'm not doing it God's way, and he's ready to overlook it, look past it. All of that is wrapped up in the name of God. So when you're walking in the dark, you trust in the name of the Lord. The way I see it is, I am trusting that God is compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, full of loving kindness, who shows his love to 1,000 generations, and is quick to forgive wickedness, rebellion, and sin, even when I'm walking in the dark and it doesn't seem that that's what's happening. That's what that verse tells me. And that's basically what I'm staking my life on right now, that no matter what happens in the course of ALS, that God will show himself compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, full of loving kindness. And my task is to keep my eyes open so I can see God doing that. As I look back now, I've had a lot of twists and turns in my life, unexpected things, things that came in, changes in direction, all sorts of things. But as I look back, I can see that all the experiences I've had have been preparation for the next stage and the next steps that I was going to be doing. Out of this, I've sort of developed the notion that God is stingy. He doesn't waste any opportunities he gives us. And we'll reuse that in the future for the knowledge, the skills, attitudes, things that we learn will be used in the future. Also, God has been faithful to me, and in all the things that we faced, sometimes with perplexities and wondering, but God has always come through. And that's something for you to hold on to, is when life doesn't make sense, You just hold on to God, and He will take you through it. Oftentimes, only in retrospect do things ever make sense. But we can also see that God was walking with us through this, sustaining us and preparing us and enabling us. So if there's anything I would want you to hold on to is whatever's going on in your life, hold on to God, and He'll bring you through and will use it, because God doesn't waste our experiences.